You can read the title of my talk. I have deliberately made it slightly controversial. I am going to discuss the onslaught of MOOCs or massive open online courses, and I believe that it's an opportunity for what I call a constructive disruption. That the MOOCs are in to cause a disruption across the globe is cast in stone. We may not believe it, just as many of us did not believe the disruption that the web caused in all our business processes, starting with late 90s and in the first decade itself. As somebody was pointing out, today you don't have to stand in queues to get your railway ticket booked or hotel booked or a airline ticket booked. A whole lot of disintermediation plus facilitation and tremendous speed up in executing activities has been the mainstay of web. When the web was causing disruption in business processes, most believed that the next wave of disruption will hit two important areas of human life. One is healthcare and the second is education. It was not very clear in exactly which fashion this disruption will occur. In healthcare, the disruption, for example, is occurring in more than one ways. The obvious way is a far better health administration with automation introduced, with standardization of health records introduced, and with ease of interchange and exchange of data for everything from insurance to medical governance and so on. The second part of disruption is tremendous strides in the knowledge gain in the medical treatment area, where personalized treatment, personalized drug delivery is now possible, where brain mapping is being seriously attempted. So you can see a whole lot of things changing very rapidly, and the pace of change is almost certain to ensure that 20 years later, the medical care will not be the way we have always been looking at that. It is in this context that I wish to look at the disruption that is likely to happen in education. I'll begin with some very fundamental problems that we face. Need for holistic education is well acknowledged. As teachers, we are aware of that. As students, we need it. As parents and the general society, they believe that there should be a holistic nature of education that should be provided for by our system. Unfortunately, we know for sure that it does not happen the way we intend it to be. We have been singularly unable to provide access to knowledge without silos. We have specialized, in fact, in creating silos. Take the generic knowledge per se and see how we have divided it in our educational system. First, we say science, arts, commerce, law are different silos. Within science, we say physics and chemistry must be different. I have seen places where a core course in chemistry, for example, is not taught by a single teacher, but because the course syllabus involves inorganic chemistry and organic chemistry, there are two different teachers who are experts in these two. In engineering, we started with just one generic engineering. As you all know, mechanical engineering was the mother of all engineering. But very quickly we broke it up into civil, electrical, mechanical, and now we have multiple silos. These silos were essential because you could not handle the growing body of knowledge in any one field. But what we forgot is that while handling the knowledge effectively, we were creating barriers for our students to acquire a holistic education, even of the engineering field or scientific field. I do not know whether we are sensitive to the fact that many of our students, when they join at a young age, they tend to believe that the silos in which they have been admitted is their ghetto in which they have to specialize. They need not know anything else. This is not new. This problem is an age-old problem. Mechanical engineers traditionally do not believe that they need to know enough about electronics or computer science. Computer scientists, the more arrogant of the lot, they genuinely believe that they have nothing to do with conventional engineering subjects. When will this nonsense stop? It did not originate today. I'll tell you an incident that happened in IIT Bombay when the PCs were first introduced, and the PCs were changed from horizontally laid PC layout to a vertical, what they call the tabletop model. I was chagrined to see the first PC which was delivered in my lab. All that the manufacturer had done is he had taken those four nuggets which were on the below the horizontal slab, and he had put them, just inverted the whole box and put those four things below here. The PC was open and I was shocked to see the internal things which have not changed at all. There were two students who were working on it for a couple of days, and I asked them, anguished, said, don't you see any problem with this? They said, no sir, it has been working fine. I said, where is the center of gravity? The power supply, which is the heaviest component in any PC, was on the top. It used to be on a side, it was on the top, because that is the configuration that idiot had decided to use. So one smart fellow understood the center of, and he said, this power supply should not be here. Then I said, what about heat flow? You see, there is a small fan, and the way the PCBs were organized, ordinarily in a horizontal layout, the fan would ensure that the airflow will take out all the heat. With this configuration, okay, the hot air was getting trapped between the PCBs, was not moving out at all. But to my shock, these two students genuinely asked me, sir, what is about airflow? So I said, look, the PCBs will generate heat and the air has to be taken out. That's why the fan is there. They could not comprehend that. But one fellow brightly answered, but sir, that is mechanical engineering problem. That means as a computer scientist, I will have nothing to do with, I will not even attempt to understand that problem. Isn't this nonsense? Are we not charged with the responsibility of creating engineers who can solve engineering problems in general? Now we might give degrees with stamps like mechanical engineer, electrical engineer and so on. But the problem that they will face in life, have you ever seen a real life problem coming with a stamp saying I am an electrical engineering problem, or I am a mechanical engineering problem, or I am a finance problem, or I am a social problem? Nothing. Real life says I am a problem, solve me. That is what is missing currently, and I suggest that the usage of technology which is expected to resolve some of your pain points, but is also expected to create some more pain points, as I shall indicate, should be used to bring back this holistic nature of engineering education. In old times, there used to be a 5-year degree program. I studied for 5 years. First 2 years used to be compulsory engineering courses, no matter what branch of discipline you are studying. Now we have a 4-year program, and because science is ostensibly not taught well in the colleges or schools before they come to our system, a whole lot of science courses are compulsorily have to be taught in the first year. As a result, basic engineering courses are either not done or a lip service is paid to them by both teachers and students. I think it is greatly detrimental to engineering and technical education, and we need to do something about it. Values and social discipline is not a formal part of our education system. We expect values to be acquired by students primarily from their parents and families, occasionally from some mentoring role models in the institute, a few teachers and so on, but it is implied that they will somehow acquire these values. It is not considered an important component. In this context, I would like to cite an example of IIT Gandhinagar, where Sudhir Jain has started a new experiment for several years and is working out very well. All the first year students admitted to IIT Gandhinagar do not do any coursework for first 6 weeks. For first 5 weeks, I think. There is a 5-week program called Foundation Program, where they are just put together and they are given a whole lot of talks, they are they are encouraged to work in teams, they are encouraged to develop leadership skills, they are encouraged to learn about values, and they are encouraged to talk about values. Whether that alone will transform every human being or not is not certain. But making it as a part of a required curriculum right at the beginning entry point, where students come from disparate places and assemble for the first time together, I have seen that it creates an extraordinary bonhomie amongst those students, and I think they would become a bit better human beings than what our system ordinarily churns out. You might consider doing such a thing formally. Please note that whatever I have spoken so far has nothing to do with use of technology. It is purely human thinking and human problem that needs to be solved in a human fashion. The main problem is we need to achieve quality among scale and diversity. It is very, very well known. Our scales are, a country which has 370 million Indians younger than or at 14 years of age. 370 million younger than 14 years age. They have not yet come to us. They will. And they will come in large numbers. And we are hardly able to cater to 15 to 18% of them in our entire higher education system, and only about 1.5 to 2% in our technical education. Unless we give them good education and subsequently good opportunities, how can we build a prosperous nation? So that is going to be our responsibility, to handle scale. There is no way this kind of scale can be handled by human beings alone without technology intervention. Already when we increase the number of IITs, number of NITs, there are people who are asking questions, are you diluting standards? Because the conventional wisdom is, if you increase quantity, quality suffers. Although I don't think it is necessary, but that is the... Look at engineering education. At one time there were 200, 300 colleges in the country. Now we have 4,500 colleges. And we do know that a large number of colleges are unable to discharge quality education to their students. That is the reason why the IIT, NIT system, which has thankfully been integrated into a singular thing by bringing everything under the central command. Earlier RECs were responsible to individual states and could not correlate and coordinate better. Now they can. I believe that this system has to be a sort of lighthouse for the entire technical education in the country. So the scale has to be tackled using technology intervention and through initiatives by those institutions which have a better system compared to others. Diversity is again well known in the country. We have 22 languages formally recognized by the Constitution and a large number of diverse languages. As Anupam said some time ago, that even in IIT system, the students who come, a reasonably good number, not a very small number, not a negligible number of students who come in the first year are not comfortable in using English. They are smart kids, they will learn English subsequently. But in the first semester, if you chew them up because they don't know English and therefore they cannot understand some of the subjects that are being taught, they remain weak throughout their lives. Is it not our responsibility to do something? Professor Basu will be glad to know that in the MOOCs, that 3 courses that we are offering, we have begun to do this. All our recorded lecture videos are in English as well as also in Hindi. And we will be soon crowdsourcing a large attempt to try and get these translated or transcribed into multiple Indian languages. It is important to be sensitive to the need for a number of students who study in their native languages in these schools. As I did, for example. I had tremendous problem in the first year in understanding English. There is not only linguistic diversity, there is a cultural diversity, there is a religious diversity. This nation has all the major religions of the world, all major ethnicities, all major languages. And as a special added attraction, we specialize in fighting over each of these issues. We fight on language, we fight on region, we fight on religion, and to a great extent we make a mess of everything. The only time when we work together is when there is an external threat to the nation. Let us consider availability of top class education as an important internal threat, because that is missing from our system. And that is why we need to talk about this. What is the desire of an individual learner? Have we ever looked at it from this point of view? Let me give you just one example. I am a smart kid. I am admitted to your college. I say, oh sir, you have a computer programming course, but I have studied computer programming already in my high school, so please exempt me from that. What does the system say? No, sorry, this is a compulsory course, you have to do this course. I would like to do some other elective, sir. No, you can do that as an additional thing, but you have to do this course. All right, sir, I will do this course, but permit me to take only the exam. I need not waste my time in attending lectures. No. Rule number 13B says that 85% attendance is compulsory. So you see, I have no choice. I feel that I am pretty stupid to have studied a few things earlier. I am pretty stupid to be a smart because the system is not permitting me any flexibility to do something extra. Consider the exact opposite. I am a laggard student. I am not bad, but I do not have adequate academic preparation. I have scored good marks in your competitive exam, you have admitted me. As an added attraction, I don't even understand English. Computers I have never seen in my village in my life. Almost all my other colleagues in the class have dabbled with computers something or the other. I go to my teacher and say, sir, will you please permit me to do this course in 1 year instead of 1 semester? Because I believe I will take 1 year to properly understand and assimilate. What does the system say? No, we have these courses only for semester. You have to do this course only in this semester. Sir, I will not be able to do it properly. I will not be able to study. I would like to study it for 1 year. You can study it for 1 year. Do this in this semester. Fail in this course. Then repeat that course again. But sir, I would like to study every topic for twice the period. You are asking me to do a crazy thing. You want me to study all these 8 topics in 4 months, fail in them, and again study the same 8 topics in 4 next months. Is that sensible? You might think that I am discussing only extreme cases and it is not realistic. It is not true. Because all your students belong to the entire spectrum of this extreme case to this. We are unable to do anything because we have to handle a large class. And to the class, as teachers, we typically address the average of the class. In 1971, when I became a young teacher, I had this confusion. I asked a teacher of mine by showing him a graph. I drew a graph on the x-axis. I drew the hard-working ability of a student. On the y-axis, I drew the aptitude and capability. And I could see that spatially the students are distributed across this map. Then I calculated the average. There was an average point. There was not a single student at that point. All students were at other place. So I asked this senior teacher of mine, sir, what you suggested yesterday that I should address the average of the class, it appears to me that I am teaching nobody because there is nobody at the average. So he said, don't give idiotic arguments. You have to address the average so that everybody benefits. Everybody doesn't benefit. My ambition as a teacher to drive the students from their existing level of expertise to the infinite level of expertise. I want that straight line to go up. But if I address the average, I am actually pulling down the better performers. Because they will invariably not do anything more unless challenged. And I may at the most benefit those students who are at the lower end to come just to the average, while they are actually as capable to go beyond that average. My dear friends, our current educational system does not factor in the individualism of every student. It cannot, because the scale even of a class is impossible for a single teacher to handle. I do not know how many of you are familiar with the 14 grand challenges in engineering which United States National Academy of Engineers has formulated a few years ago. I was myself not aware of those. The US National Academy has done 2 good things. They have listed 20 great inventions in the last century which have changed the human life. And then they have listed 14 grand challenges of this century. These 14 grand challenges include availability of clean water, okay, cheap solar energy, brain mapping. Notice that each of these problems and challenges, grand challenges they call them, are interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary in nature. There is not a single grand challenge which is a mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or civil engineering problem. We need to prepare our engineering students for this century to solve those problems. We are preparing our students to solve conventional problems in the conventional way which existed in the previous century. That itself should make us sit up and think about the syllabus not as an incremental change but as a substantial change. Does it make sense to have a semester-long course necessarily? Consider this. We want electives to be defined. I was talking to Professor Chaudhary that new electives to be defined because the NIT system, the choice-based credit system, does not have electives. What is our standard reaction to this? We'll have a few faculty members say, oh, let's have an elective in computational fluid dynamics or elective in some other course. Invariably, all the teachers who assemble to design that elective will think in terms of a semester-long course. They will not think in terms of 1/4 semester-long course. They will not think in terms of 2.5 year long course. Why? Friends, we are captives of our own stupid regulations of defining the engineering education as 4 years comprising of 2 semesters each year, and that's it. Another director of IIT Hyderabad, Uday Desai, he has started experimenting with courses which are not 1 semester long. The courses which are half semester long. Even in IIT Bombay we have these. There are courses which are 1/4 semester long, and people get credits awarded which can be accumulated and counted towards your major and minor degrees that you get. This is the kind of innovation that is expected to start happening in IITs and NITs first, and hopefully this will percolate down to other institutions. But we must think completely out of this box if we need to change the situation that exists today. Of course, there is a danger that, for example, Uday Desai was telling me that he introduced a course which was a 7-lecture course. A course, start to finish, 7 lectures, end sem exam, you get the credit or you get a grade, and that's it, that is counted. Now, there were some problems he faced because acceptance was not there. What will this mean? Let me tell you the kind of experiments that are happening in MIT and other places. They are all now redoing the packaging of the concepts in smaller modules, and they are saying that there need not be a semester-long course at all. At all. But just think about it. When I reflected on this phenomena, I realized that yes, whenever I am planning a course, I typically plan a course for 13 to 14 weeks duration intrinsically, because that is how my mind has been conditioned to think. I cannot think of anything else. 50 years ago, my teachers used to think in terms of 1 year long course. But would we continue to do that? And if we have to do something different, can we do it through human efforts alone, or do we need technology? It is in this context that I mentioned that the educational technology has to be exploited by us to fulfill the need for holistic education, to fulfill the need for flexible education, and to fulfill the need of all learners, individual learners, not collectively but individually. Because one of the 14 grand challenges which the US National Academy has outlined is called advancing personalized instructions. Can you see? This is a grand challenge for this century. At the end of this century, every learner should get personalized instructions. Today, it is extremely difficult. It's like each teacher becoming a personal tutor to each individual student. We can't imagine that today. The number of students are too many. How can the technology help to move towards that is the ambition. Conventional education technology you are all familiar with. I'll just very quickly give some glimpses of a few of the things which probably I am aware of, some of them being work at IIT Bombay, some at other sister institutions, but there is much larger amount of work that has been done, and I request you to actually look at all possible educational technology elements that you can come across, because we don't know which one would be most meaningful in the particular endeavor that you embark on. These are the clicker devices that were mentioned. We call them affordable because we could build them at about 600 and 1,200 rupees as compared to $35 cost then. These are classroom response systems, much like what the great Big B used to use in Kaun Banega Crorepati to conduct feedback. We found them very useful because they riveted attention of our students on what was being discussed. If you just give a sermon-like lecture, half the students will lose their attention sometime or the other during that lecture. But if you say there is a quiz, then people will be attentive. You all know students, okay? You associate 1 mark with any activity and they will all work for it. If you say it is for your knowledge, they will say thank you very much. So, Professor Kannan Maudgalya, who has used flipped classroom for last 5 years in his class, used these devices, and now he uses Akash tablet to conduct quizzes. His first quiz is conducted at the beginning of the class to ensure that the students have actually viewed the video recorded lecture which they were required to view for discussion session. A flipped classroom, incidentally a model where I don't give any lecture at all. Lectures are supposed to be seen by the students which are previously recorded. The entire class hour is spent on discussion sessions and problem solving. But that will be useless if students have not viewed that lecture. So a 1 mark quiz at the beginning. And that ensures that over 95% people view that lecture, because nobody would like to lose 1 mark. And then the discussion sessions that follow. I and my colleague Professor Supratik Chakravarti conducted a flipped classroom using the blended MOOCs, what we call it, for CS 101 with 500 students. My younger colleagues, Professor Sridhar Iyer and Sahana Murthy, have conducted pedagogical research, and they say that a flipped classroom increases the students' engagement from an average of 40% in the normal sermon-like classes to 80%. Students get engaged to the level of 80% when you spend the entire class in problem solving and discussion session. And it's not a very complicated methodology. We don't have classrooms with furniture amenable for such discussion by you. You look at all our rooms, even look at this lecture room. They all imitate old churches where a padri will stand here and give a sermon and all of us have to listen to it. They are not meant for coalescing discussion among small groups of people. Most of the top universities in the US are redesigning the furniture in their classroom with round tables and circles where groups of students will sit and discuss problems. So in my course, for example, I tried saying that 1 row is 1 group. Okay. But even there, the person sitting in one corner and the person sitting in another corner cannot interact, but they interact through each other. So what we do, we say, okay, this is a problem. First, individually people will solve it to 10 minutes. Then we give them 5 minutes to exchange notes and discuss among themselves. And then we arbitrarily pick up solutions of 2 or 3 students and display them on the screen. And you know, students are delighted to find mistakes in other people's solutions. So there is a huge amount of discussion saying this is not correct, that is not correct, this algorithm could have been better. You spend 10 minutes, and for those 10 minutes, believe me, the entire class is looking at that board with rapt attention, because this is not a sermon from a teacher, this is the effort from their own colleagues. And as you know, most of our students are smarter than us, just as we were smarter than our teachers. That is the common belief, right? Okay. True or false? While teachers are smart, students are smart, but it is invariably true that some of our students, on some occasion or the other, are capable of coming out with gems of solutions which none of us have thought about. And those solutions emerge in such discussions, they are present. To do this class after class after class, teachers have to do extra work. Me and Supratik have spent sleepless nights with two of my colleagues, Firuza and Nagesh, just to design problems which are conducive for such discussion. Not easy. In normal engineering colleges affiliated to technical universities and so on, teachers do not even know how to set questions in a question paper. And that is because the question papers are stereotyped in the university exam. Things have not changed. The same thing happened in 1963 when I was a first year student. First year I studied exhaustively. At the end of first year I discovered that every question paper said solve any 6 out of 10 questions. Second year I was very comfortable, study 60% of the syllabus, score 80% marks. Third year I discovered that several questions are repeated from the previous exam. Life became still better. Till I came to IIT where I was smashed to ground, because there is nothing like explain this, describe this, no choice. It's just problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, problem 4. That is how the paper is. That is how technical education papers should be. But have we trained our teachers adequately to do this? Do we have peer groups which bring a peer pressure if somebody goofed up? I still remember about 8 years ago, in one of the re-exams for a business data processing course, I had given one problem which was a modified version of a problem which I had given 2 years ago in a main paper. My colleague Professor Sarda was the invigilator, and he immediately looked at that problem, left the classroom, came to me, took me out of my classroom, shouted at me for 5 minutes. He says, this is not done in IIT. You are kamchor hai. You are not doing your work. You are supposed to set a new question. I said, this is a modification. He says, no, it is essentially the same question. Now, that is the discipline that we hope to follow. Do we all follow it? Forget other institutions. Do we all follow it in all IITs and NITs, in every discipline and every department? Is there sufficient amount of peer group pressure? Or are we complacent with each other? He is not doing too much work on setting up questions, so I also don't do too much work. Is it okay? Teaching, my dear friends, is not easy. If I expect my students to work for 18 hours a day, I must be able to work for 20 hours a day. Otherwise, I have no moral right to expect them to work for 18 hours a day. So this is hard work. But this hard work pays off because of two things. A tremendous pleasure in seeing that your students are being transformed in front of your eyes, and confidence that they will do something extraordinary in life as engineers and technical people. That is where we ought to use technology to a greater extent. This is an Akash tablet with a connected sensor. You know, experiments are costly, and our conventional labs are not able to give adequate exposure to every individual student on every aspect. Any measurement lab that we had, traditional lab, is meaningless today if you consider the way the measurement is done. Biological measurements, pathological measurements, all measurements are done differently. Here is an example, a temperature sensor, which can be seen here. It is put on an Arduino based board which we call Anudino. Anu is atom. Professor Kannan Maudgalya's team designed this. This whole gadget, including the cable, cost 90 rupees. An Akash tablet, Akash is a name, you take any low cost tablet. This runs Linux, this runs all the virtual lab kind of experiments that are possible with connected to such devices. Okay. Kavi Arya, my colleague, is working on robotics, and he is trying to popularize low cost robots as training equipment. Now, these are the kind of things that must percolate down to all engineering disciplines. It is not just electronics or computer science or something. It's everything. There is chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, such experiments. And giving hands-on to people is absolutely essential. Kannan's team has ported Scilab on an Android machine. It, of course, works on Linux. Here is a low-cost, is the what we call Akash elder brother now, a new invention. It's actually a machine with a keyboard. It's not a tablet, and that is because many students give a feedback that on a tablet they cannot input their assignments properly. A keyboard is found much easier. Of course, it's still affordable. The cost to us in a tender situation was about 6,000 rupees. It does not have hard disk, but you can connect additional external thing, and it natively runs Android, but Kannan's team has put the complete Linux version here. In fact, last year when we did a survey for the first year course which Professor Kaviarya taught, the programming course, we found 50 students did not have their own laptops. So we gave those 50 students these machines, and they did all their C++ programming using GCC on these 6,000 rupee tablets. In fact, there was a complaint of what we call reverse discrimination by 3 smart and rich students in the same first year. They had their Apple MacBook Air and such high-end machine which did not run GCC compiler. So they said, we can't do programming exercises, but these people are able to do so. Please give us also these inexpensive gadgets. These gadgets are essential because they provide access. As somebody had correctly said, access to knowledge through internet and through affordable devices is a primary requirement of using technology, but that alone is not sufficient, as I will mention briefly. Many of you would be familiar with the T10KT project. It was mentioned there. We trained 10,000 teachers at a time. The modus operandi is that these 10,000 teachers don't physically come to IIT. Of course, they assemble at more than 300 remote centers that have been set up over the years. Nit Rourkela is also one of the remote centers. In the morning, interactive lectures are delivered to all 10,000 people to these 300 remote centers. In the afternoon, the local teachers conduct experiments, lab sessions, tutorial sessions under the supervision of a local workshop coordinator at each of the remote centers. One of the worries that we always had was, how do we ensure that the lab sessions and the tutorial sessions are conducted with the same rigor in which they are conducted in the IIT system, because they are being conducted at remote place. So what we decided to do is to collect all the 300 workshop coordinators from these remote centers 2 months ahead of the main workshop, bring them to IIT. IIT Bombay and IIT Kharagpur incidentally are partners in this T10KT workshop system. We grill these coordinators for 1 week, ensuring that they are now well versed with the conduct of tutorials and labs in the IIT style, so that they can go back, prepare, set up experiments, and then when the actual workshop starts, they conduct the labs in the same way. In addition, we use Moodle to both permit people to make their submissions and so on, to conduct online quizzes. One of the problems was that when we conduct an online quiz for 10,000 teachers, our Moodle server crashes. So that is something that our friend Subrato from IIT Kharagpur seems to have solved that problem. With 1,200 people online, he is able to do that. We are also able to do with 1,500 people. And this is where the massive open online course platforms, which can handle hundreds of thousands of online users, is coming to our rescue. We will be using that platform increasingly in these workshops. So these are the remote centers that we have. This is a glimpse of the workshop coordinators who assemble in IIT for that 1 week rigorous training. This is a photograph of one of the remote centers, one of my more favorite photographs, because you can see there are a large number of lady teachers here. In this remote center, there are a few men, but they are sitting sheepishly behind. You can see them. They are dominated by. You know, when we started getting mails from these lady teachers, we were quite amazed, because we had not frankly planned for this kind of benefit. Invariably what they say is, had you arranged for this 2-week training program in IIT Bombay, we could have never left our family and young children to come to IIT Bombay for 2 weeks. Because it is organized in our town, we are benefiting from it. Kannan proudly says that we are empowering 50% of the national population. Now this is a very useful, this is something which we had not imagined. So use of technology which actually permits you to go anywhere where people are, rather than requiring people to come together, is a great leveler of all opportunity. Spoken tutorial is another technology innovation which Professor Kannan has started. More than 5 lakh students have benefited. These are self-learning modules which are 10-minute tutorials. We are actually adopting these for preparing our MOOCs lecture videos. You know, there is a universal agreement based on large statistical surveys that while a lecture may be 1 hour duration, but a pre-recorded lecture which you want your students and learners to view should not be more than 8 to 10 minutes duration. Curiously, Khan Academy started doing these 10-minute videos much before this statistics was discovered, because he had an intuitive hunch. Kannan also started doing 10-minute tutorial much before the MOOC statistics was published. He also has 10 minutes tutorial. Common sense tells me that he can retain the attention of a person for 10 minutes watching or listening to anything continuously. Beyond that, it is doubtful. And that's a fact of life. You know how our 1 hour lectures are bearable? Because during that 1 hour, whenever a teacher senses that the attention is getting frittered, I will stop, I'll crack a joke, I'll do something to sort of deviate slightly and then come back to the main point. Because the human brain requires a break of this. That's why you have commercial breaks every 7.5 minutes. The TV people have understood human psychology better than teachers. Virtual labs are another gigantic effort done collectively by a large number of institutions. This is led and coordinated by IIT Delhi. And these virtual labs are not just remote labs with simulation, but they actually connect to some very costly equipment which you can remotely control and do experiments from remote. Another example of such remote usage of information and data is virtual observatory, which Ayuka in Pune has created. You know, the amount of data that you get from the stars and the stargazing large durbeens is in petabytes. And every individual researcher in the country working in astronomy cannot actually get access to that entire data. So they have made a virtual observatory which can be used to sort of help people understand these. Here is a similar open source repository created for school education by NCERT. Open source is an extremely powerful concept. Whether open source software or open source knowledge released under Creative Commons license means anybody, everybody can not only use it, but can actually distribute it, modify it. So knowledge is not then constrained under the so-called intellectual property regime. Do you know that if you put the material on your web saying you can download it, it still is not open source? You have to say you can not only download it, but you can distribute it to anyone if you want. You can use it, you can modify it any way which you want. All that you need to do is give credit to the original creator. There is a license called Creative Commons license under which all the material that we develop under the national mission projects is released in open source. Incidentally, that is a binding requirement of the national mission, that all knowledge created by public funding under the national mission must go to the open source, which is a good thing, because then all of us, anybody can use that to enhance our own efforts in education. In the concluding part, I come to the onslaught of MOOCs. MOOCs have grown in last 3 years. Luckily, 3 of the IITs, IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras and IIT Bombay, were alive to this, and 3 years ago we started our respective activities. In 3 years, the number of courses offered online by the top well-known people from top universities has skyrocketed. The number of students who enroll for these courses are in excess of 10,000 to 1 lakh. The number of people who complete those courses successfully are very small, 8 to 10%. But look at it this way, 1 lakh students register for a course, only 10% finish it. That is still 10,000 students completing. Is it at all possible for any college to train 10,000 teachers in 1 semester long course in one shot? Even if I have 1,000 students admitted per year, it is 10 years it takes to train 10,000 students. So, the massive open online courses is a phenomena that is now there to stay and there to grow. The only problem is that our conventional university system is not accepting the MOOCs as part and parcel of their own education system. Curiously, when we did our flipped classroom, we did not realize, but what we are doing was using MOOCs in a blended fashion. People view the courses on MOOCs on the recorded lectures and attend classes for doing discussions and problem solving. But MOOCs go one step forward. They run an entire course. So they have a weekly schedule or a topic-wise schedule, there are online examinations, online tests. There is an honor code which is established where the learner himself says that, look, I will not cheat. And then at the end of the course, a certificate is given which is called an honor code certificate. This certificate is currently not as valued as a degree certificate from the college. But globally, now increasingly the employers are realizing that if somebody has done a genuine course and got some marks on an online course, and if that course is meaningful for the kind of work that my company does, there is no harm in considering that certificate as equivalent of any other degree certificate. In India, the first group to do that is a company called Persistent System, where they used to conduct online evaluation. But now they say online evaluation needed to be preceded by a university degree, but if your online test scores are good, you don't need to have a degree. Imagine if Tata Consultancy Services or Infosys, instead of coming to your campus for recruitment of your students, decide that they will employ people from online tests and they don't care whether those students have any degree or not. Would the students still continue to come to us in large numbers? This might hurt, but the fact is that the arrogance of our established classical education system resides on the assumption that the society and the employers will continue to value our degree certificates. The day they decide that the degree certificate is not at all essential, I can judge the skill level and competence of students independently. And the day students and learners know that they can acquire this skill and competence independent of us, where will we be? Should we wait for that? Should we say that is a good position to have? Probably not, because whatever online education can do, it can never ever replace that important element of human interaction which happens in the education. My own solution to this dilemma, therefore, is to use a blended MOOCs approach, where the students learn from both. They learn using MOOCs because they get to listen to some very stalwart, established authority in that subject from some top institution. And they also learn from my teacher. I also learn from my teacher in my college, because in face-to-face interaction, the problem that I can comfortably ask my teacher, I can never ask that stalwart. Although there are discussion forums and so on, but there is an element of spontaneity, an element of seriousness and sincerity in human interaction, which is missing in MOOCs. This was attempted by some universities abroad. San Jose University attempted it for their entire university for one course, saying MOOCs, and the college teachers will engage them into these flipped classroom sessions. But on a large scale, this effort has not ever been done in the world anywhere. I am very proud to say that for the first time, India is going to do this experiment, where 52 autonomous institutions have agreed to come together to experiment with just 3 subjects. There are 3 core subjects. Their students will study these subjects in their own university and will also study the MOOCs. And the local teachers of these autonomous institutions will award a grade in that course based not only on the local assessment but also on the MOOCs assessment. It's the first time that the blend of grades is being acknowledged and being done. And I am very happy and proud to say that NIT Rourkela is not just one of those 52 institutions. These 52 institutions formed a consortium jointly with IIT Bombay and IIT Kharagpur. They have elected an advisory board. And today, on the occasion of this workshop, the first meeting of the advisory board is being conducted in NIT Rourkela. The advisory board is chaired by none other than Professor Sarangi, director of NIT Agartala. So this is a globally first experiment that we are doing. I am glad to say that all the directors from other NITs who have come, they are also part and parcel of this, including Geetam University. We'll have this first advisory board meeting to tell you how people in the country at the leadership level are keen to know what is happening here. Is the chairman of the National Board of Accreditation, Professor Suren Prasad, met me and said, Phatak, what is being done is extraordinary and it could change the way in which education is administered and accredited. So please document everything that happens there, all experiences, and share them with us. AICTE chairman has appointed a committee to formalize this process and suggest that up to certain credits in every semester, students from every engineering college can obtain through a MOOCs course. That committee will deliberate shortly. Why I say this in elaboration, I am sorry, I still have 5 minutes left. Please note that so far in our lives, we always followed something which was done elsewhere, and that elsewhere always meant United States or Europe. In fact, whenever we asked for international experience, we meant that experience. But the new challenges that we are facing, and probably China is facing, these will not be solved by merely blindly taking whatever technology and whatever solutions the West has. We have to evolve our own solutions. And most probably in next 5 years, it is what happens in India and China will get quoted elsewhere in the world and will become the harbinger of the new methodologies and new pedagogies to be adopted on large scale. We have an opportunity, friends. And that is why I say that MOOCs will cause disruption, but we have an opportunity to make it a constructive disruption if we work together. We have taken only tiny steps. Frankly, we ourselves are not sure what will happen out of this blended MOOCs experiment. There are a lot of doubts that people have. The teachers, individual teachers, who are not well versed with conducting a complete lecture hour with just discussion session, are concerned what to do. As an added attraction, there are humongous problems of topics being mismatched, timetable being mismatched. Can you believe that one college started their first year course in June something, and the last college participating out of these 52 to start their first year course, we started on 18th of August. Now how do you coordinate these? So you have to elongate MOOCs, elongate something. That is why when Professor Chowdhury in the morning was discussing the possibility of at least NITs coordinating their timetable and offering some slots where an elective is offered, let's say by NIT Rourkela, and the students from Nagpur and other NITs simply participate in that through the technology. A blended MOOCs in a different way is entirely possible. And I believe that NIT should take this lead. NIT and IIT system should take this lead so that within few years, all 4,500 colleges will benefit. You know and I know that most of these colleges do not have adequate number of qualified and experienced teachers. Even we are struggling with the faculty pool. So this is one way to use maximally and most effectively the available faculty, talent and resources, and to spread our endeavors to educate people on a grand scale. This is the MOOCs platform from IIT Bombay, which we call IIT Bombay X. There is a very similar effort by NPTEL. They offer online courses using Google Course Builder. They will soon be building, offering these courses from a server in India. Currently it works on the Google server in US. IIT Kanpur MOOC on MOOC or MOOCit platform created by Professor Prabhakar. It is a third well-known attempt for a large-scale MOOC thing. There are a few things in other sectors, but these are the main attempts in India. And you might have heard of Swayam, which is being built now. There are unfortunately been a large number of committees. I think a meeting is scheduled on 6th of August and we'll soon know what is going to happen as well. But the point is, these things are there, we are here, and can we work together, can we come together and exploit these technologies for enhancing our reach and enhancing our impact. Please do not think only in terms of those 8,000 students who are here on the campus, or 4,000 or 6,000. Think in terms of 1.25 million learners who join engineering education every year in 4,500 colleges. Everything that you do today, you are doing it for the benefit of those students. Of course, that will remain your primary responsibility. But try to see how you can use this technology, every morsel of it, so that you can reach out to more number of people. Just as we say, there are many people, very, very smart people, who cannot come to IIT Bombay because they are not in that competitive rat race. Similarly, there will be very many large number of smart students who are not able to come to NIT Rourkela or VNIT or NIT Agartala because they don't score so many marks. Don't they deserve the top quality education and the top quality expertise? MOOCs and blended MOOCs will permit us to do that in coming years. I'll conclude by giving some, I'm sorry, I'll exceed by 5 more minutes. So I have your permission. I would just like to mention these things.
10 minutes.
Oh, thank you. These are suggestions for teachers because this is what is increasingly occupying students' mindset. Rat race is natural in human life. Rat race has to be participated. After all, our students come to us through rat race only. We don't interview every individual aspirant. We say so many marks, etc. And this phenomena actually creates huge problems. Remember always that every rat race will produce only a few winners and a large number of losers. And winners will have overconfidence, occasionally bordering on arrogance, and losers will have underconfidence, bordering on diffidence, and sometimes converting into despondence. How many cases we hear where people hang themselves because they could not crack JEE and things like that. Such weakness of mind. But this is not one-time phenomena, this is perpetual. And the perpetual thing results in everybody evaluating one's performance relative. If I have done better than others, I am happy. If I have done worse than others, I am very unhappy. I never examine myself. The cost of time, I will tell you an anecdote in my own personal life where I learned the importance of asking the right question. I had studied in 14 different schools in Madhya Pradesh because my father used to be transferred. And we had just been transferred from Jagdalpur to Raipur. I was completing my 8th standard exam. In one quarterly exam, no, it was the final exam, 8th standard, I got the maths paper and I very proudly showed it to my mother. I had scored 96 marks. And my mother was smilingly took that paper and started looking at it and asked me a question innocuously, where did you lose 4 marks? I was upset. I said, I have stood first in the class. Suddenly she stopped looking at the paper, looked at me and slapped me hard. I must be the first joker in the world to be slapped for scoring 96 marks and for standing first in the class. And I asked her, crying, why? She says, this is not for your 96 marks or losing. This is for your claim that you stood first. I don't care what you stood in the class. If you had scored 40 marks also, I would have asked you, where did you lose those 60 marks? It is not important for me how you have done relative to others. It is important for me whether you have done as well as you could do or not. Since that day, I have learned to ask one question after I do any task. Not whether I have done it better than others or worse than others, but if I were to do it again, could I have done it better? Believe me, on not a single occasion I have got any answer other than no. I could have done it better. I have not done it to the best of my ability. That is learning, friends. And we are depriving our students of this important learning because we are not prompting them to do self-introspection after doing anything. They are always happy or unhappy based on what they have done with respect to others. Please break this logjam. Unfortunately, we also are human beings. After passing out the rat race of marks, we enter into the rat race of position, promotions, money and everything. And we ourselves are accustomed to doing only relative comparison. Extremely harmful for any educational process. Inculcate pride and honor in them. Cheating, copying, okay. Our only response is to punish. Do we prevent? Do we tell them that there is honor in failing a course but not copying? Do we have any mechanism which inculcates the pride and honor amongst our students? The only mechanism we have is stick. We don't have a carrot at all for discipline. I would strongly suggest that there have to be mechanisms outside the standard punishment. If you are caught, I will bash your head. If you are not caught, so naturally students will develop a philosophy where you catch them, he says, and you sort of, our one brigadier boss used to ask people to publicly apologize when they were caught. This group of students had actually stolen a car of a professor, roamed around and come back, and they were met to apologize. One of the students in apology says the following. He says, I did this, and then says, I am sorry that I got caught. He was not sorry for having done what he had done, but he was sorry for having got caught. Are we creating students with this mindset? It's very harmful for their own future life and certainly harmful to the educational system. Let's do something about it. Our job is mainly to motivate. It is wrong to say that our job is to transfer knowledge to students. That is bunkum. Knowledge is never transferred. It is generated in each individual mind. We are facilitators. We are motivators. We must motivate, we must challenge the student's mind. I will tell you very frankly, and I am very sad to admit it, that after spending decades in teaching, where I have genuinely tried to improve my teaching, I now realize that that alone is not adequate. Because what needs to be improved is ensured improved learning. We never evaluate ourselves on how we have improved the learning of individual students of the class. We evaluate ourselves on how we have improved our teaching. Improving learning means to get into the shoes and mind of each student and try to see how that student learns. And then we discover that student learns by spending active time on a particular subject. Not by sitting in a class for 1 hour, not by copying assignments, but by spending active time. And how do we motivate a student to spend active time in learning? That is where these things like group sessions, discussion sessions, problem solving sessions, challenging sessions help. That is where the concept of increased engagement with students help. And that is what I believe the MOOCs and blended MOOCs are likely to do. MOOCs alone will not do it, but blended MOOCs will do it. I'll conclude by saying dream big, enjoy life, and work hard. This is a message that I would like you to give to your students. This is the message that you have to give to yourselves. Dreaming big is not my own contention. Everybody has said this, including my favorite mentor, late Dr. Abdul Kalam, because our dreams limit our activities and achievements. Enjoying life is my own thing, because unless we enjoy everything that we do, we are not likely to be very, very effective in whatever we do. And I don't mean enjoying only this or that. I must enjoy every moment of life. You know why? Every moment is so precious. Unlike everything else, which if you lose, you can re-earn. Time is one commodity which is one-way traffic. Every instance it comes and it's gone. So unless I am enjoying that instance, I have lost it. So I must enjoy everything. I must enjoy seeing a good movie. I must enjoy arguments, fights with my friends. I must enjoy everything. That is important. And last, work hard, because history cannot be created unless we work hard. And the 3 letters of these 3 words mean something special to me, because they convert into beautiful dewdrops like which we would like all our lives to be. So with that I will end. I will only say that it is no more possible to ignore technology. It is no more possible to remain on the periphery of technology. It is absolutely important to jump into it, learn it, imbibe it myself, so that my students can work with greater confidence. If I am uncomfortable using emails, or if I am uncomfortable using Moodle, or if I am uncomfortable setting up an online quiz, my students shall remain 10 times more uncomfortable. And it is very, very important that we adopt it, because then we can spread our effectiveness beyond the boundaries of our own institutions to larger number of people across the world. Participate in this. Someday I would expect practically every teacher participating in one blended MOOCs or the other related to that subject, benefiting not only the group of students with whom he or she is engaged in discussion sessions, but benefiting through the contributions thousands of others who will benefit from whatever you post on the discussion forum, whatever small additional videos that you make discussing one specific problem and its beautiful explanation, which can be seen by everyone else.
So in the MOOCs courses, it's expected that the students, the teacher doesn't teach anything basically, but the class is used up with activities, quizzes and all that. And it is expected that the students should look at the videos before they come to the class. Which videos they were referring to in this specific events that you had conducted? Was it the NPTEL or something else?
No, we have created, for the 3 courses, we have created our own videos, because these are used in IIT Bombay itself. Secondly, I disagree with you that student doesn't teach anything, he only holds discussion. And this shows our own biases. We believe teaching is lecturing.
No, sir, I am not saying that.
No, you are saying that.
No, I am not meaning in that sense.
But we all mean that actually, because we believe in that. For us, we are very uncomfortable if I have not given a lecture for 1 hour. If I have just spent sitting here and discussing with students, I believe that I have wasted their time. In fact, if my director walks in and says, "Ye kya tamasha ho raha hai, Phatak is not engaging the class," he will give me a charge sheet. Because our concept of teaching is centered around standing on a podium and giving a lecture. I am trying to say that throw that concept out of the window, it is wrong concept. You consider personalized tuitions, which some of our children do with teacher. Does a teacher give a lecture? The teacher in a personalized tuition sits around the round table at the most 2 or 3 students and is always discussing problems one-to-one. That is teaching. What we are doing is an aberration to teaching. We are doing it all these years. For God's sake, let us realize that it was wrong thing that we are doing. Of course, if we just throw this out of the window and do not do anything more concrete and useful, then we will be merely causing an anarchy. And therefore, the transition has to be smooth. It cannot be overnight. But I would suggest that a teacher is teaching more in this model, much more. But for that, the teacher has to prepare differently. It's not easy to decide on problems for discussion. And what we are doing along with these blended MOOCs is we are also running a T10KT project, a workshop for the participating teachers. There are not 10,000 teachers, there are only 50, 100 teachers. As we speak, we are designing special sessions on these for the workshop to train people on how to design problems for discussion. That itself, we also don't have much expertise. Sorry for intervening, but please continue with your question. So, the model is different, but what was the main?
My main point was in terms of the undergraduate teaching.
Yes.
Now, there is some part of the teaching has to be done and then you need a discussion and all that. Now, in a MOOCs concept, is it expected that the student would attend a lecture online, a video lecture, and then come to the class prepared?
Yes. Yes.
And that has to be done subsequently for every
No. This is what we had done in IIT when we did the flipped classroom. There is no lecture in the entire course. But this cannot be done in this experiment with blended MOOCs for various reasons. First of all, suppose I am a teacher in NIT Agartala. Thermodynamics I am teaching, although I don't understand it as well. But let's say Gaitonde is the MOOCs teacher. Now, I have never done it in my life earlier. The recorded lectures are not my lectures, they are Gaitonde's lectures. My students do not know Gaitonde, they see me only. I will be very uncomfortable if I have to tell them that listen to Gaitonde and then come and discuss with me. Number 2, the topics that Gaitonde covers and the sequence in which he covers it is not the sequence and not the same set of topics that I cover in my course. I will cause a mismatch and cause a disruption even in normal understanding. Therefore, my recommendation for this first experiment of the blended MOOCs is don't blindly adopt this methodology. Do your normal teaching in the way you are doing, but identify 1 or 2 topics, 3 topics, 4 topics in which you are comfortable that whatever lectures Gaitonde is going to give will be suitable for my thing, and say that 3 weeks hence, when this topic comes for discussion, Gaitonde is going to release that material. Listen to those lectures. At that time, we will plan this flipped classroom. It is not necessary to do a flipped classroom for even a single lecture in the blend. But it will be silly if we don't achieve that to some extent. It is not certainly required to do it for all 100% of the lecture. Similarly, for the marks of the blending, we said up to 20 to 80% marks on the MOOCs and remaining marks from your thing. Should we blindly take those marks? For example, again I give the illustration that I am in Rourkela and I am teaching thermodynamics. I discover that amongst all the 5 quizzes that Gaitonde is going to conduct and the main examination, only 3 of the quizzes cover those topics which I believe are relevant to my course. Now I can say that I will take marks of quiz 4, quiz 5 and quiz 6 only and take a factor of that and mix it with my marks to give the grade. But that is the beauty of autonomy. I am an autonomous teacher in NIT Rourkela. As long as I make that decision upfront and tell my students that look, for you the marks will come from these 3 quizzes online, whatever is your score, percentage of that and percentage of other. This flexibility is the beauty of IIT NIT system. It does not exist in an affiliated college today. My suggestion is, let us experiment with this, but let us record whatever we do. Let us record the reasons why we do it. The flexibility is complete. All that is expected minimally is that at the end of the day, if I am teaching thermodynamics, a percentage of evaluation of that student's grade must come from MOOCs. What percentage, in what fashion, in how exactly I should use those classrooms is entered, because you see, at the end of the day, I am also a teacher and I am as proud as Gaitonde is. So Gaitonde may be great, but so am I. I would like to use his expertise and my expertise in a combined fashion to benefit my students. That is the objective. So complete flexibility. That is the moral of the story. Thanks for asking this question. I will probably write this answer and circulate it on Moodle and workshop thing, because many teachers might have the same worry about how to go.